Greetings, viewers, readers, and friends. This is my second attempt at making a video review. First one was several months ago when I talked about the X-Files and how disappointed I was in that, and that took so much time that I got a little discouraged and decided maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Well, I've learned a few things. We're going to see if this one goes a little bit better. This is mostly unscripted. I have the Internet Movie Database screen in front of me. Did a little backtracking into some of these actors, and we'll just get right to it. So, Stranger Things is a 8-part miniseries on Netflix. Became available earlier this month. I saw some friends on Facebook talk about that it was pretty good. In 8 parts, you can have it done in a week. I thought, okay, let's try the first couple, see what I think, and go from there. So let's just get to the bottom line. My highest recommendation. It's awesome. It's everything that you remember Stephen King writing in the 80s, even though this isn't actually based on anything he did. It takes place in the 80s. It pays its homages to 80s living, 80s movies, some subtle and not so subtle tributes to 80s films. Certainly Poltergeist, E.T. is referenced, The Goonies, or maybe the way some people remember The Goonies. I don't find that particular movie holds up, but the idea of 3 kids on an adventure is certainly a big part of this, and it would be wrong to say that Stranger Things is just an homage to the 80s. It's much more than that. It's very much its own thing, and it works exceptionally well. In your 8 parts, you're going to get a pretty complete storyline. What I really liked about this is that it does actually, they leave a hook at the end for a second season, but most of the things that you're there to see resolved do get resolved in various ways. It's a big pet peeve of mine when you watch a show and they just kind of end it. I like to say, please end on an exclamation point, not a question mark. Don't leave me hanging with big questions that should have been resolved. There's a real sense that this story is going somewhere right off the bat. It feels very assuredly guided, and I felt like, okay, this is definitely, this has a plan, and I could appreciate that right in the first episode, and it did not let me down. So now that you know that, my highest recommendation, go see it. Now, for those that want to get a little bit deeper into it, I will get into the people in this a bit. The most recognizable name to me was Winona Ryder. I did not necessarily take that as a good sign because I'm not a really big fan of her work, but I will say this is probably the only thing I've really liked her as an actress in. I've never really been that impressed with her. She's always struck me as being a little bit outside of it all. When she's acting, I feel like there's more posing and emoting, but I never have really felt connected to most of her roles, and I'll include Edward Scissorhands in that, which is a movie I actually like. I think she works well in period pieces because that's sort of the cool, emotionless kind of role that she became known for, and that worked for her, but it never really impressed upon me her skills as an actress until this. Actually, I was extremely impressed. She has a scene in the second episode I'd say is award worthy in and of itself. The story, without getting too much into spoiler territory, I'll just cover what we know in the first maybe episode and a half, I guess. So you have this group of kids, they're Dungeons and Dragons players, and they're sci-fi fans, and they're very much the sort of kids that people my age would remember kind of being at the time this takes place. And In the early 80s, in a small town in Indiana, side note, there's a mention of a teacher named Mr. Comiskey, who was actually English teacher of mine at Warren Central, so question mark on that. But this takes place in a small town. I grew up in a suburban community outside of Indianapolis, so the tone certainly is not very similar to what I grew up in. That aside, this group of kids, one of them gets mysteriously abducted. We learn that in the teaser. We see him being chased by something, and then he vanishes, and the rest of the kids are trying to figure out who it is, where he went, how they can find him. There's a couple other plot lines going on at the same time. Winona Ryder is the mother of the child who has disappeared. She really, really gives a great performance, emoting the stress and the horror of her situation. Like I said, there's a scene in episode 2 that I thought was absolutely fantastic, where she goes into the pharmacy where she works to just grab up supplies and basically tells her boss, I won't be coming in and I need these things. And the hysteria that she plays in that scene is absolutely convincing and riveting. So we have our 3 kids. Mike Wheeler is played by a young man named Finn Wolfhard. I believe I'm seeing that correctly. And interestingly enough, he's going to be in the remake of It, which this very much seems in the same category of genre. So I found that interesting when I looked him up. He's very good. The little guy who really steals a lot of the scenes, though, is an actor named Gaten Matarazzo, who plays Dustin, and he's very much the chubby kid he has no teeth in the front because his teeth have, his baby teeth have fallen out, but his adult teeth haven't grown in yet, and he's very much of the nerds. He's like extra nerdy, and he plays it extremely well. It could very easily have come off as a type of role that could have backfired and been too much, but he manages to find that exact line between sympathy and empathy and parody. He doesn't cross over into parody. He does a very, very nice job, and he's actually the one that kind of stands out. And then there's another young actor named Caleb McLaughlin, who plays Lucas. The 3 of them have really good chemistry together. And then we have a mysterious, strange little girl, played by another actress I'm not familiar with, named Millie Bobby Brown, and she plays a character only known as 11 because that's the number tattooed on her wrist, and she's running away from some facility near town where terrible things have apparently happened to her, and of course that's probably tied into the disappearance of the other boy, and of course eventually they will meet up and figure some things out. And then there's a third plot line regarding a couple teenagers that almost seems like it's taken out of every 80s rom-com of the era that we've ever seen. This series does a really good job of setting its tone. It's kind of a love letter to the 80s, but it's very much its own thing, even though it manages to work in all these some subtle and not so subtle homages to other things. It's still very much its own thing. If it was just an homage to the 80s, I don't think it would have worked nearly as well as it did. Everything unfolds at a very, very good pace. You can really get a sense of every character, and there's plenty of surprises throughout the 8 episodes. It seemed like almost exactly the perfect length, because the way we watch television now, you can go through these in a day, or go through them 2 or 3 at a time, or I watch them one a night. I don't have a lot of time to watch TV, so I can only spare about an hour or so, and this was time well spent on a very exceptional little miniseries. So that's about it. Check it out. If this goes well, hopefully we'll see more of these soon. Take care, and I will talk to you folks later.